Hello, good people. Kirby Obsidian back again. And once again, talking about politics. And I specifically want to talk about personal responsibility. Now, I'm in this glorious, amazing setting. I'm so blessed to be able to come here. My wife and I were fortunate enough a few years ago to be able to buy this small property. It's in the southern tier of western New York. Have this beautiful lake. So lucky. I'm also retired, which I consider an amazing blessing. I keep saying we ought to figure out who invented retirement and give them a Nobel Prize, because it's such a wonderful thing to be able to wake up and do whatever I want and still know the bills are going to be paid. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I'm sure wealthy in the sense that I just have an amazingly beautiful life. Now, how that connects to politics is that it's so tempting to shut out all that's going on out there that's ugly and just kind of want to maintain this and just be content and happy with that. But I certainly feel like I can't afford to do that. I don't think we can afford to do that. Those of us who are comfortable, who are well taken care of, who are blessed, we have to be thinking about those who are not. We have to use the tool of empathy. Now, something I've been coming across a bit lately is how there's this anti empathy segment of MAGA. I saw references to Charlie Kirk talking about empathy being somehow an obstruction, something that keeps us from doing what needs to be done. And it just astonishes me that there may be a substantial segment of Americans embracing that notion to do away with empathy. But I understand how, you know, when soldiers go into battle, it's been long practice to dehumanize the enemy so that empathy doesn't interfere with the soldier doing what a soldier has to do. Understandable, and yet you flip that and you say, oh, so maybe if we have more empathy, maybe there'll be fewer wars, less fighting. But that's getting off on a tangent. What I want to talk about today is the need for us to be empathetic about what may be going on in this country that does not directly concern us. President Trump just ordered troops into Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is a wonderful city. It is certainly a left leaning city. It is certainly a city where there's a huge remnant of hippie culture, which I think is wonderful. I love that part of our culture. But imagine living in a city and suddenly finding federal troops there. Federal troops that, by reading of constitutional law, have no business being on domestic duty policing civilians, American civilians. So, wherever you may be that's peaceful Imagine that, and imagine how you might respond to that, and imagine how, if you had to respond to that, how you might hope that your fellow citizens would respond. Imagine being in a community where armed, hooded men are coming in, storming into a business, coming into a neighborhood, coming into community settings with force, saying that they are ICE agents, refusing to identify themselves, covering their faces, and carting off members of your community. Now, even if those members of the community are illegal immigrants, they may be long-standing members of the community who have served it well. They may be people who the local businesses depend on. They may simply be good citizens. How would you feel in that situation? And how would you hope for your neighbors and fellow citizens to react to that? Imagine being dependent on Medicare, food stamps, other social services that have already been threatened or cut or are possibly going to be, and suddenly being fearful of how you're going to survive. And imagine thinking about how you're going to manage and what your hopes might be for what your neighbors will do to support you, what other American citizens may do to support you. So what I'm saying is that we need to go against the tendency to want to shut out the unpleasantness. We can't afford to shut it out. We need to be very aware of what's going on, not just to us, but to others like us, to others who share our aspirations, to others trying to live a good life and facing some obstacles to that. And I say this again as troops are about to go into Portland, Oregon, and as Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, no longer Defense, now the Secretary of War, has called an extraordinary meeting of top-level brass from all the military branches to convene, and some fear that this is the beginning of a process to administer loyalty tests to see who's going to be with Trump as he extends the reach of the military into U.S. cities, considers invading places like Venezuela and Greenland, and who knows what else. Let's have more empathy. Let's feel it. Let's consider not just our own situations, but the situations of our countrymen and our non-countrymen. Because, face it, everyone on this planet, we're all related. They've done some studies, genetic studies, that show that we're all related. We're all human beings. Let's have some empathy. Thanks, folks.